Only 1% of you guys are subscribed to the channel. Please hit the subscribe button for daily stories. This story is about Aunt Karen, not her real name, and how she ruined Thanksgiving 2023 for me and my parents, and why we will never be spending Thanksgiving with her again. For some background, I am not very close with any of my relatives on my dad's side. Aunt Karen is my dad's sister who lives in Florida. About 10 years ago, when I was 14, we spent Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. I don't remember much about it. I spent most of the day with my cousins having a decently good time, but the end result was that my mom made my dad promise to never spend Thanksgiving with my aunt again. As you can guess, that lasted a decade until 2023 when something happened. My grandmother, my father's mother, had her 80th birthday on Thanksgiving, and my mom agreed to go down to celebrate with my grandmother, who is a very wonderful person we don't get to see very much since she moved down to Florida herself. Part of this celebration had my mother convincing me to bake something for my grandmother, as a gift since baking is my hobby and I like to make things for people. I made her a key lime pie from scratch since key lime is her favorite. I also made chocolate chip cookies to bring in general since they're probably my most popular thing I make. Now, before we even arrived at Karen's house, my mom was already annoyed with her because the week before, she and my dad had gone down to Florida with another one of my aunts to surprise my grandmother as an early birthday gift. A nice dinner out with just adults, no grandkids. Keep in mind that my family lives in SC, 2 states away from Florida, and my other aunt lives all the way up in Pennsylvania. They all managed to make it, and they invited Karen along for the surprise. Karen promised to go, since she lived only 2 hours away, then she bailed last second. She didn't even apologize or explain why, she just bailed. My mom, dad, and other aunts surprised my grandma themselves, and my grandma was very happy with said surprise and a little sad that Karen didn't make it. Anyway, we arrived at Karen's house and she had her new boyfriend over for Thanksgiving. He was actually pretty nice, but we hadn't known he would be there until that morning, and my sister and I aren't good with strangers. I'm on the spectrum and my sister is very introverted, so I just awkwardly talked about how I brought cookies and set them on the counter. I'm always anxious for feedback on my baking, which definitely feeds into how this story goes, so I was watching for people trying the cookies and asking how they were. Karen was arguing with her daughter, who was actually pretty nice too, as she cooked the rest of Thanksgiving dinner. My parents helped out and my sister and I stayed out of the way. Dinner went okay. The real problem came with dessert time. My family had brought 3 pies plus the cookies and sweet potato souffle, which is one of my favorite dishes that my mom makes. We brought them because my grandmother asked us to bring the desserts for Thanksgiving with the expectation that we'd have all the desserts while my aunt made the dinner. Come time for dessert, and my aunt brings out this huge pie and a cake for my grandmother, announcing that she saw the pie recipe on TikTok and just had to make it. My grandmother ate the pie my aunt made and didn't even touch the key lime pie I made for her. It really hurt my feelings and I felt like I was going to cry, even though my aunt's boyfriend tried it and said it was absolutely amazing. My mom was fuming, too, which is why I don't think she said anything when I excused myself to the den for the rest of the night. I curled up on the couch with Karen's dog and put on my headphones, hiding and preparing for the drive back home. Needless to say, I talked to my parents about it later, and they agreed that now, for real, we were never going to spend Thanksgiving with Karen again. Not after that stunt she pulled. They also said I should try to make the pie again another time for my grandmother, but I don't know if I want to. Story 2. My mom freaks out over my tattoos and any bodily autonomy. I, 24F, have loved tattoos and piercings since I was a young teen. My mom, 54F, has always had a hatred for any body modifications, hair cutting, dyeing, piercings, tattoos, particularly on me and my sister, which is off since my brother is a tattoo artist. She never explicitly explained why she doesn't like them or why she doesn't want me to have them, but when I would ask she would basically shut the conversation down and said, "Because I said so." There have been several times in my life where I would try and rebel against her beliefs, which often lead to big fights. The biggest fight is when I was 19 and I really wanted to cut my hair short, to my shoulder. Up until this point, I always had long hair and my mom would always trim my hair. When I told her I wanted shorter hair, she got extremely mad and said, "No, you'll look like a boy." After days of trying to convince her, we agreed that I was allowed to cut my hair to my shoulder blades. I accepted this because I knew this is the best outcome I could get. So she cut my hair, and I was not satisfied with how it looked. I wanted it shorter like how I initially mentioned. The next day I went back to college, where I lived with my roommates at the time. I decided, fuck it, it's my hair and I want to love myself when I look in the mirror. So I went and got my hair cut a couple more inches to the desired length I wanted. I loved it. I felt so free and liberated. When my mom found out, she ripped me a new one. Called me disrespectful, she was hysterically crying, and she threatened to stop paying for my tuition and I would have to move back home. My dad reached out and told me I really upset her and I should apologize, which I did. I have massive guilt and pleasing issues with my mom. Anyhow, that is a little background info on how my mom typically responds to when I want to do things for myself. Fast forward to a couple of months ago. I decided I wanted to get another tattoo piece done. I have 2 other tattoos that my mom is aware of. With my other 2, my mom was very involved with the process. She decided size, placement, everything. I basically only got to decide what it looks like. I went along with this because I knew it was the only way I was going to get them. I'm not upset with how they turned out, I love them regardless. But mind you, I was 20 and 21 when I got these done and paid for both of them myself. Now with this 3rd piece, I wanted to do this by myself as a 24-year-old who now lives on her own and makes her own money. When I told my mom, it turned into the biggest argument we had ever had. I have never heard my mom talk to me like this. She called me selfish, disrespectful, and accused me of only coming to talk/visit her when I want to tell her bad news, getting a tattoo. She said she doesn't even recognize me anymore. This obviously upset me and I left the room in tears. When I calmed down and came back to talk to her, she continued to lay into me about how I am ruining my body and how I am going to look on my wedding day, which by the way I am nowhere near getting married. I tried to explain to her that her words were upsetting me, and I just want her to support and love me no matter what. She couldn't give me this reassurance, and continued to play the victim as if I am the one doing something terrible to her. I left her house very distraught. After a couple of days, we talked on the phone, but she never apologized or brought up that situation again. This is usually how it went. I ended up getting the tattoo, which I am absolutely in love with. I hide it when I see my mom, but when she does see it, she ignores it. She has since made me promise to not get any more, which I did not agree to, of course. I want more and soon, but I am crazy worried about her reaction again. I love my mom and care what she thinks of me, and I want a good relationship with her. Why can't she accept all of me? Is this narcissistic behavior? Anyone else in a similar position, feeling lost and wanting to live my own life? Story 3. I think my mom expects to move in with me when she retires. First, I, at 41, want to say my mom, at 63, is ambitious, has her own business, and at some point had 2 day and evening businesses. She works hard and was our main breadwinner when I was growing up. Lived also with dad, grandma, and brother. I never really had emotional connection with my mother. I always longed for one. I feel like I should come to terms that I will have the bare minimum of it. I think she is emotionally immature. Most of her life has had anger issues, smokes cigarettes literally non-stop, and drinks every day, sometimes starting at lunch. I don't think she is an alcoholic, but I might be wrong. It's kinda socially acceptable to drink every day where I'm from originally. A few years ago she sold our apartment to pay off her second business debts, and didn't tell me for 2 to 3 years at least / thinking I might not want to visit maybe, / she said she also doesn't know why she kept that information. She admitted that first business is good but uses money to cover for second businesses and eventually shut it down, but still lives in the huge building / hotel with restaurant / and is trying to sell it. She said we might be paying debts after she dies, but I said no way I will pay ever for anything when I am some working barely part-time from home. She had asked me to move back and be the manager for said business when it was open, but I refused right away because I knew in 2 weeks we will be arguing if something isn't her way. Plus I was right to guess it wouldn't be successful for long. She forced my brother to work weekends there for years, and he had to travel so much and not spend time with his GF. Currently has 1 loan and insurance on it if she passes. She hints to help us if she sells the building, and I realize I don't want her to think she can pay off our or part of our mortgage and move in. She asked how much is to rent a place near me. Think tourist US area. I said a lot. I have offered her to come maximum 6 months here and 6 months in Eastern Europe, basically close to my brother. To buy with the money an apartment closer to him, or a house to do her favorite thing, gardening. She starts crying that she's going to be alone. I said, well, meet someone, and she doesn't want a man to have her as a mate. Again, traditional gender bias in said country. She longs to see grandkids and participate in parties, and when she comes and I take her to said parties, she is not happy because she doesn't speak the language. I don't know what to do to help her be happy. I also tried clearing the past with her and asked her to apologize for some things, but in her mind she was never wrong and makes fun of me, saying that I feel traumatized. Some examples of that are: I was regularly beaten as a kid, slapped as a teen, yelled at every day, even for getting a B at school. I was a good kid. Yells to me about the smallest things in every setting and in front of anyone. I guess my dad had a pill addiction and drank a lot and killed himself, but I doubt it was only him at fault. She was yelling constantly to him and alienating him from his family, so I think maybe he couldn't take it. No one let me see the death note he left. I was only told he loved us and had mental illness. Gives me a gift of cleaning my yard and buying some plants, but won't stop and makes bigger and bigger plans and wants to rearrange my furniture while visiting. Complains about my lifestyle and my brothers and how I raise my kids and how he has no kids. Talks against family members for no real reason and alienates me subconsciously from them sometimes for years. She was mocking my appearance, like saying I had big nose, big ears, hanging butt, and if we both lost weight mine would still hang like my dad's and hers won't. Didn't let me work until 20 years old because I wanted to save and buy clothes I actually liked. I was late home once as a teenager and was because of a essay. She called me a W. And kicked me out for a bit. Oh yeah, and ripped my new clothes only hoodie I actually liked and got to choose. She tended to rip and cut people's clothes if she was mad at them. When she's over, if I ask her to watch the kids, she literally sits down and watches them. Usually only calls online to see them, not me. Comes to visit grandkids and tells me to hit them, which pissed me off, and told her everything I wanted her to apologize for, but she never thinks she is wrong and told me to be thankful I was born. Forced me to not study art and do economy in high school and college, so I barely graduated college because I really wanted to study something else. I admit she did support me financially until 20 to 21, but I wish I could work earlier. I finally taught myself some art and use it in my current home part-time job, soon to be full-time job. Before I had kids I had good career, but now hubby does most work outside. When I started my business, my mom at first mocked me and yelled at me that what I'm doing, but now seems proud. She only ever showed any respect to me after my business started. My husband likes her, does everything she wants, my friend loves her, and I can't help but feel I am an ungrateful age. They both said everything she did, including physical abuse, made me the strong, successful person I am now. Like what? I plan to raise my kids better, and hopefully she and my husband don't guilt me to have her live here. I really tried to get away all these years. Please tell me the truth. Am I obligated to something or am I being ungrateful? Update. Wow. So I finally decided to call my brother to share my thoughts. He generally knows and feels similar with him, and he is actually on the way to my mom so she can transfer her whole last property on his name. She said after that she will tell him why she's doing it. Plus he told me she / her accountant fault, as she claims / was showing inventory in her business over 1M, and it's really almost nothing. But somehow avoided being audited because they caught the auditor in corruption. I doubt that an accountant would put the invoices wrong by themselves for years. She must have asked her. And when I think that she was telling me years ago how her business partner started putting more inventory on purpose, and she had to split, it must have been her actually. I feel so dumb she hides so much financially from me. I don't need her money, I'm fine without her, just feels again like I'm not a person enough to talk / share anything with, and it freaking hurts. I'm going to try to be numb to her, and be honest, I don't want her here. Update 2. So she might be chased by mafia guys, because they bought the last building she operated from and she was always late on rent, which accumulated daily interest, and she didn't see it in the contract. Now I'm worried about my brother, who might be a target. WTF, am I in a movie?